The recent update for Souls added a new billion aura called Dreamcatcher. However, unlike other 1 billion auras, it's a challenge aura. Now, on the surface, this makes sense. Other billion auras are like this anyway. However, it's a 1 in 2 billion only during nighttime. Half the time spent playing the game is during nighttime. This would make the aura practically a 1 in 4 billion. For example, imagine Arcane could only be rolled on every even number, and can't be rolled on every odd number. This would make it twice as rare, as it's impossible to get it half the time whilst rolling. The same thing would apply to Dreamcatcher, just on a longer timescale. Because nighttime and daytime are the exact same length, so it should just be a normal Transcendent. This can actually be confirmed by using aura charts from the past day. Just by looking at the graph, roughly double the players get Equinox or Breakthrough. It becomes more obvious looking at the averages. 7.24 people per hour get Breakthrough, 3.76 people per hour get Dreamcatcher, and 5.72 people per hour get Equinox. Dividing 7.24 by 2 gives 3.62, which is lower than people getting Dreamcatcher. So, Dreamcatcher shouldn't be a challenge. Souls RNG just released a trailer for a new animation series called Archiver. I wanted to analyze the trailer as much as possible. First of all, there's some interesting text in the description. It says the journey to seek the auras of soul, confirming auras are in the series if that wasn't obvious enough. The video starts by saying Soul Survivor, as the main character runs through a castle, while Stella says this in the background.
You're finally awake.
This is Stella, by the way, based on the thumbnail being the main character waking up and looking at Stella. The next scene says Shadow of Chaos as the main character looks surprised. Also, Stella says this.
Do you remember what happened to you?
I'm assuming Stella most likely told him about his powers to control auras. This would explain why he's looking down. Then it says Seeker of Aura as a close-up of Stella pans across the screen. She also says this.
And control that power.
Now, I would assume the power she is referring to is the power to equip or use auras, like I mentioned earlier. We see a line using Flutter in the very next scene. In that scene, I guess he's talking to the main character. Then it cuts to Stella talking to the main character as he's waking up. This is actually the exact same scene as in the thumbnail. Notice later. It then cuts to Stella looking at what I could assume is a book of some kind. Then it cuts back to the same room as the main character is drinking a lucky potion. Then shows 2 final shots of him falling down a hole, presumably in the castle area. And he seems to have Lotus Fall. I mean, it looks like Lotus Fall. Also, I do want to note that this scene takes place in a purple forest, which is also the same place where I assume Stella is reading that book. Probably for a spell of some kind, and if that's the case, maybe the spell is the Lotus Fall thing? But I doubt it. Who knows? What is the worst aura in Souls RNG? No, seriously, think about it for a second. Something so laughably bad, you wonder how it even got in. I guarantee nobody said Sandbasket. It is one of the more obscure auras after all. For those unaware, Sandbasket was a part of this 2025 summer event. This event was okay, and not that many people even liked it. However, it was the first to really experiment with how auras would be obtained. One of those auras being Sandbasket. And on the surface, it looked like every other small easy aura to get. And it was. Or at least it was supposed to be. Look, how someone was supposed to obtain this aura is by getting a shovel and using it on the sandbox to then have a chance of getting Sandbasket. As for the sandbox, it was this 21 grid box that used shovels to dig along the tiles to get fun rewards, including, of course, Sandbasket. So what was the chance? It was a 1 in 3.5 thousand. Oh, that's not that bad. I get chromatics on the daily. Until you realized the 1 in 3.5 thousand it's referring to is every time the sandbox resets. Not every dig, but every time the sandbox fully resets. It made this aura insanely rare for literally no reason. Because of all of those factors, it's around the rarity of Atlas. How is nobody talking about how bad this aura is? Oh, and the fact that it's unrulable kind of heavenly? In fact, more people genuinely had every other summer aura than Sandbasket. I mean, come on, at least with battle auras like North Pole, Impeach, Crimson, there's still an argument with those auras, not this one. This summer aura doesn't even have any music. I mean, come on, what was the developers even thinking when they were making this aura? Oh, but don't worry, I heard it had an ability. That ability doesn't do any damage or have any collision. Someone please rework this aura. The 1 billion badge in Souls RNG has a really weird history. The badge became obtainable during Eon 1 when Luminosity released. However, the badge actually came out before Eon 1. The 1 billion badge was created on June 17th, which was 12 days before Era 8 came out. And the devs kind of shadow dropped all the new badges for Era 8. This is still viewable with the Wayback Machine, although the images don't load properly. It's hard to say if this is a sneak peek or not, as all the badges were blacked out, including the 1 billion badge. Out of the 17 badges at the time, the 1 billion badge was the mysterious badge 11. I know this because I used spec elements to match up the IDs until I got the correct match. When the update released, all of the badges got its name and images. Even though this badge dropped with Era 8, it was never obtainable. And at the time, this kinda left a lot of players confused as they didn't know why the badge was in the game if it wasn't ever obtainable. My running theory is that Oblivion was meant to be the first 1 billion aura, however the devs scrapped that and made the Oblivion potion instead, and still kept in the badge just in case they would add a one later. But I'm not a developer, so I wouldn't know. Souls RNG just dropped its new update, and here's everything in it. This update is pretty basic with 4 new reworks, those being Parasite, Chromatic, Overseer, and Dream Metric. I think all of these reworks are good, except for Overseer and Dream Metric. Overseer is fine, it just needs a little bit more motion, and Dream Metric is okay, don't get me wrong, it looks good, but it's a challenge plus, it's alright. As for the new auras, there's Shark and Hammerhead, Ice Veil, and Poseidon Atlantis. Atlantis is probably my favorite new aura here, and Ice Veil finally got added after being slapped in the Christmas update. Both Atlantis and Hammerhead are from Rain, meaning there is 6 Rainy globals in the game right now. Moving on, there's Graffiti, Spectre Requiem, and the 2 Red Moon auras. And unlike the other Death Biome auras, these don't have a special cutscene. Also, the update log says there's 2 Mythic auras, although it's only Spectre Requiem. Meta got a new ability and it's kinda cool. Spectre Requiem and Shark and Hammerhead also have abilities. However, one thing I want to mention is the content that got cut before the update. See, when the update was about to drop, these game passes all got leaked. And just look at that. Viable merchant tickets, viable one-time use fine randomizer, and rune chest bundles? Obviously, I'm really glad none of these got added. Whether or not these come to the game, it just shows where the developers' heads are right now. It feels really scummy the fact that they want to add more game passes, when there is literally a game pass that is almost a necessity to buy. If the devs really want to add these, please remove some of the current ones, because all of this pay-to-win stuff is horrible. Souls RNG really wants to add more pay-to-win game passes, so instead, here are some game passes that aren't pay-to-win. There should be a game pass that lets us see every aura in the collection. Obviously, you wouldn't be able to see literally every aura. However, you already could see every aura through like the wiki, through YouTube, or even through Discord, so it doesn't really matter if we can see them in game or not. Give us access to the stuff content creators can do, like free cam or the biome visualizer. I never really understood why this was locked behind only content creators. Yeah, it helps them make videos and stuff, however these features aren't broken enough that not everyone can have it. Add an actual admin panel that lets us do pretty much anything in private servers. Again, people obviously couldn't just spawn biomes, auras, merchants, whatever. Just the fun stuff like changing the size of our character or the color of our aura. Let us also do stuff like replay global effects or even transcendent effects if we own the aura. Yeah, people could just lag out the server and stuff, but like every other game does this. And I don't see why Souls can't do something similar. If these features were just in the game, I feel like people wouldn't be constantly trying out modded games. Add a game pass that lets us customize our leaderboard titles. It doesn't have to be too crazy, just something simple like letting us set images or change the color of the title. Again, yes, people would abuse this, but other games that have something similar, people already abuse it. And I know people aren't gonna like my suggestions, and that's fine. To be honest, these weren't serious ideas, but just Souls needs more fun game passes that let us mess around and break the game. The devs are so focused on trying to keep people from breaking the game, and then they go on to adding more game passes that are pay to win. That's just driving people away. And like this game is really buggy as well. Plenty of auras in Souls RNG tend to have the same rarity. This is obvious, of course. However, I wanted to know how many auras share a rarity with another aura, and what was the most common rarity an aura can have. To set some things straight, I'm talking about auras with a set rarity. Native rarities or anything that makes an aura more common doesn't count. So after going through every aura that falls under this category, I made this quick spreadsheet, and the most common one is between 3 rarities, all with 5 separate auras. Those are 2 million with Gravitational, Unbound, Bugify, Cultist, and Kidnap, 10 million with Star's Courage, Sharkin, Guardian, Illusionary, and Moonflower, and 1 billion with Lamithier, Frostveil, Estri, Pakeko God, and a Fool's Experience. And in second, it's tied between 50,000 and 80 million. Other interesting things about this spreadsheet is that the most common similarity is between lucidity and memory, both at 1 in 100. On the topic of lucidity, all of the star auras have weird counterparts. Arcadia is with Neferkarf and Fragments of the Crimson Moon, and Reverie is with Meta and Snowball of all auras. As for the rarest similarity, it goes to both Equinox and its 1 mutation, both being at 1 in 2.5 billion. There's some other cool stuff like how Everstorm and Shard Surfer are the same, although these auras came out so far apart from each other. I'll leave the spreadsheet in the description for those who want to see, but just know I'm not updating this past Eon 1.25. What's the rarest fish in Souls RNG? When I was first thinking about this, I assumed it was just Sharko. However, that's not the case because every biome has its own unique fish, and each of the biomes has its own legendary fish. Because of that, looking through every biome, I found the rarest fish is the Vanta ray. People might actually know Vanta as Vanta Black, and well, Vanta is an acronym for Vertically Aligned Nanotube Array, which is what makes it the darkest color. Anyways, this fish can only be found in the Null biome as a really rare fish. In fact, I've only caught 10 myself. For comparison, I have 3,484 Sharkos. So yeah, the Vertically Aligned Nanotube Array's ray is the rarest fish in Souls. However, fishes could also have mutations attached to it. And if counting for that, it would mean that the Hollow mutation on a Vanta ray is the rarest, right? Well, no, because both Glitch and Dream Space also have fishing mutations called Fragmented and Lucid. Even though Vanta ray can't be found in Glitch or Dream Space, Sharko still can. And since Glitch biome is a tad bit shorter, this makes Fragmented Sharko the rarest fish in Souls. Everyone knows that the rarest aura in Souls is Illusionary, but how long would it take for someone to realistically get this aura? Some people might have said 346 years to get one. However, this comes from a couple of theoretical factors that simply aren't that realistic because it's assuming that every time you get into a cyberspace, you do 7,500 rolls for the entirety of the biome. Also, it's assuming that the person is alone in a private server using Strange Controller and Biome Randomizer the second it goes off a cooldown. But because Biome Hunt Discord servers exist, getting multiple cyberspaces every single day isn't that hard. Now, the hard part comes in the fact of warps and transcendence. More specifically, the skip rules required for the entire biome. Crafting 3 warps is necessary for the skips to last the whole biome. Polite Core doesn't really do much as it only gives an extra 1,500 rolls. And yes, it's more rolls, however, unless somehow there's a back-to-back cyberspace, I don't see how this is very easy. Because even in massive Biome Hunt servers, cyberspaces don't spawn that often. Everyone would just use up those extra rolls. I would say someone could get around 5 warps a day if they were really trying, and with people already having Transcendence and warps, I would say someone could get into 2 cyberspaces every day with that. It would still take 1.5 years to guarantee 1 illusionary, but realistically, it would take like 7 to 8 months. When trying to roll Oppression or Dream Metric in their respective biomes, but for the people who don't roll it, they might say they lost a 50-50 or overshot it. However, that can't ever happen because that's not how the rolling system works. In short, the rolling system works by individually checking each and every aura from rarest to least rarest until it lands on an aura. However, with Challenge and Challenge Plus auras, both of those tiers are prioritized and put at the top of the list so it checks for all Challenge and Challenge Plus auras before it goes and starts checking for every other aura, which is actually how auras like Oblivion and Memory are rolled. This means rolling any global that isn't Challenge or Challenge Plus will always be an undershoot. This also goes for auras that are the exact same rarity. For example, Lotus Fall and Dream Metric, both of these auras are the same rarity. However, rolling a Lotus Fall instead of a Dream Metric isn't losing a 50-50. It's still an undershoot because Dream Metric is a challenge plus and will always be prioritized over Lotus Fall. That's pretty cool. Is it just me, or does anyone else notice how bad the crawler is? Not just that, but also the crawler is weirdly outdated. A lot of the ores are either broken or just don't really work well. Also, every single attack besides the instant kill pillars don't have the slightest indication. And the fact that it gives 5 lives just feels like a cheap excuse to make the boss as painful as possible to go through. Like, how is that death fair? There's also so many other problems with this boss, and I get it's literally the first ever boss the Souls devs probably designed. However, it cannot be that hard to make it less painful to go through. And the boss has stayed pretty much the exact same besides a couple of changes when it was first added. Especially the optimization. I don't have the greatest PC, but that's not really the problem. There's just so much particles on the screen and it just makes ores pop in and out of frame. It's fine if the devs don't really want to work on this boss that much, but with everything the devs want to do with the boss raids, I don't see why they can't just go back and fix a couple extra things. It doesn't even have to be a rework of the boss, because to be honest, I feel like it would ruin the charm of the original, with the boss feeling like a non-stop rush kind of boss rather than the normal run-of-the-mill typical boss like the Amalgamation. Even so, the plethora of problems this boss has just can't be ignored. The Souls devs have been recently pushing more dev biomes than before, which is weird since a couple months back they said they wouldn't do as many anymore, but I guess they changed their mind because they've been doing dev biomes every other week now. Also, I'm not calling it admin abuse, because that's a really stupid name. Like abuse? What do you mean abuse? Anyways, with the current 4 dev biomes, the state of them has been really weird lately, because the last one that the devs made was Words biome, the Engineer of Justice, which, for people who don't know, all of the dev biomes up to this point have been based off of the 7 engineers. Those being Space, Time, Justice, Chaos, Life, Death, and Knowledge, in that order specifically. This means that 3 of the 7 still don't have a dev biome or even an aura type. And since the devs haven't made a new one for a couple months now, I wonder if the devs are going to start working on the next dev biome soon. And if they're going in order, that would mean the Engineer of Life is up next, which I'm pretty excited to see what they have planned for that. As for the biomes themselves, I just wish they each had more unique effects besides just biome natives and extra luck. But realistically, what can the devs do to make it unique, you know?